Hey, Wayne Williams, speaking of horses, and we are, believe it or not, we are on Long Island. We're right in the middle of Long Island, very close to Central Islip, if you're familiar with the area. And very happy to have a guest today, Mr. Sonny Garguilo. Now, Sonny and I have worked together at many events and horse expos and the like. And I kind of jokingly refer to Sonny as my New York cowboy or New York horse person. But we're here today to show you that horsemanship, horse activities, and everything to do with horses is very alive and well on Long Island, and there are many good horses and horse people on the island, and you just don't think about that when you think about New York. You think about New York City, and you don't think about this. So, Sonny, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yes.
Now, you're here on Long Island. You're basically born and bred in New York.
Yes, sir.
Just to give us a brief synopsis of your journey to horses in a nutshell, and out here to Long Island and what you're doing now.
Well, I mean, as a kid, every kid, especially in the inner cities, I grew up, I was born in Brooklyn, I was raised on city streets, okay. I think every kid grew up with, a little bit of the Lone Ranger and Western movies, John Wayne and such, so I think those were heroes we could look up to because they were outside of our environment. They were like today. Kids kind of look up to these, Iron Man and things like that. They were so far out of our environment that it looked fun. It was interesting to us. And they were heroes to us. You'd see the Lone Ranger. You see, like I said, you see, John Wayne and all these guys, and it was kind of cool. So I think every little boy and little girls that watch those shows really gravitated to that because of the glamorous ideas of the cowboy.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. And I've always had a theory that when you look at you go back to the cowboys, the working actual cowboys 150 years ago. Without the communication that we have today, they had a code of ethics they lived by. You didn't wrong anybody. If I said to you, I'm going to finish this cattle drive and I'm going to meet you in Cimarron in 6 months from today,
you'd be there.
Then you'd be there, and you had no reminders or telephone calls. You just had to remember that you were going to meet in 6 months.
Right.
So they had cowboy values that were very important. When the working cowboys kind of faded, the silver screen cowboys, as you mentioned, the Roy Rogers and the John Waynes and the Gene Autry's, and you run them all down, they kind of replaced that bill, and they still taught us that good always wins, good defeats evil.
Yeah.
And Roy Rogers even had his 10 Roy Rogers Riders rules. If you may not remember that, but it was obey your parents, do your schoolwork, but it was all the things you should do to be a good, upstanding kid.
Right.
That message today, the silver screen cowboys are all gone.
Yeah.
So the kids are turning to the superheroes because they're still imparting a message of good's going to beat evil and those kind of things, which kids need to see right winning out over wrong, so that's what they strive for.
Right, because I don't think, most kids today, they're not playing outside anymore. They're inside with their phones and their computers and their video games. To us it was glamorous to be out, to see these guys out in the open range and the open pastures and running through, punching cows and fighting Indians and all that stuff. That was a different world for us.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do people really do that? Yeah, that looks cool. And today, you look at the superheroes, Iron Man and this guy and that guy. Everything's technology based. That's what these kids know. They don't know to go outside and get on a horse. Not every kid, of course. Kids maybe towards the Midwest, they're still doing that stuff. They're rodeoing every weekend. But in the cities, we don't see any of that.
Well, see, the other thing about that, and like even when I was a kid, I had a horse. But I also watched, I'm talking now, I'm giving my age away here, but I would watch the old Superman TV show back in the 50s. Everybody in my era would take a towel out of your mom's bathroom, tie it around your neck, put a safety pin in it, and then jump off of something thinking you could fly.
Jump off one of the dresses.
And that's when you learned that it didn't always work.
Right.
But You take then these kids, like in my generation where we didn't have, that stuff.
Right.
You went outside and played. To go outside with a horse, now you really got a winning package, because the horse not only is your companion, it takes the place of that quote secret friend that you
Right.
invented, and it also had with it all the responsibilities of caring for an animal.
Right.
So you got all of those lessons with that companion.
And that taught you values.
That's your values.
Yes, sir. So yeah, I mean, here on Long Island, when I, as a clinician, I do the expos and stuff, right? You go outside of New York and people feel, when you say to them, hey, I'm from New York, right away they assume you're from upstate, at best. At best.
At best, yeah.
At best. But then you say you're from Long Island and they cannot believe that there's horsemen on Long Island. They can't believe there's horsewomen, there's horsemen, there's horses. We actually have 30,000 horses here. And a fun fact is that we have Deep Hollow Ranch out here. It's at the tip of Long Island. It is actually the oldest working cattle ranch in the United States. So, there is a history of working cowboys here. There is a history of, we had a very big reining community at one time here. A lot of big reining shows were here.
There's still a cowboy mounted shooting group here.
There is a cowboy mounted shooting. A friend of mine, Joe Mugnai, started that. I never thought he'd get it done. He was a student of mine at one time, and he was a friend of mine, and he said, yeah, I'm going to do this cowboy mounted shooting. And, handguns in New York is very difficult, very difficult. But he got it done. And, for me, anything that you can bring to the horse industry, in our area at least, is a plus.
Well, the first thing we want to do with this show, we're going to show you more things around Long Island here, but we want to show you the legitimacy of the horse industry on Long Island, because just like you said, Sonny, people say you're from Long Island, you're from not upstate New York, you're from the area which everybody then considers it just New York City.
Right.
If you look at a map, Long Island is about 100 miles long. Okay, we are sitting about 50 miles out, so we're 50 miles east of New York City. Just starting to turn more to a little rural countryside than city. And if you go that last 50 miles east, it gets more and more rural. You're sitting here at this facility, which we're going to show you some pictures of, with about 4,000 acre preserve attached.
Correct.
With horse trails in it.
Absolutely.
And you're on Long Island.
And we have the funny thing is, because we're land shy here, we have 1,500 horses in a 3-mile area here. So there's a lot of horse just in this area here.
Yeah.
And people take advantage of the park. We do trail ride out there. I have a facility where I bring horses in and stuff and work with them. But there are a lot of riders here. There's a lot of horses here.
There's a lot of really good horsemen and horsemanship, and yes, it's Long Island, but don't be fooled. Don't be duped, okay? It's really good.
No, we do all right. We do all right.
So you do a lot of training and everything. So what's on the agenda? What you up to these days?
Well, I like to do in-house training, of course, but I travel. I do clinics. I'll travel up and down the East Coast. I'm actually going to Germany this year, outside of Berlin. I've been contracted to go there and do a clinic in June. So I'll be in Germany this year. But I do clinics. I've done every major expo just about. I've done Equine Fair. I've done Horse World. I do Horse World every year. I'm there.
Baltimore and Harrisburg, right?
Baltimore and Harrisburg.
I see you there every year.
Yeah. I mean, I've been up to BC at the main event. I represented the U.S. at a colt starter competition. So, that's the funny thing when people say, well, you're from Long Island. Yes, that's true. And quite frankly, a lot of what we do, a lot of what I've done has been really just out of being self-taught. Working with horses for 20 years, understanding the horse, because there's no way, a good horseman has to develop feel and timing and all that stuff. You can't be taught that. So you can watch a million videos and you can watch, a million YouTube videos, but unless you're getting out there and doing that stuff, you'll never develop it. So yeah, there is a sense, it's harder for us here because we don't have a lot of land. It is harder for us here because we weren't brought up on it. A lot of kids in the Midwest, they're rodeoing every weekend. The high schools have rodeo teams, and you get your 4-H and stuff like that. We don't have that anymore here. We don't have it. You know, I think maybe we have one 4-H out here. I'm not sure, but our kids here aren't brought up with that. We're really on the island here. It's English based. You know, if you had to say, you know, what's the breakdown? I would say it's like 50% English riding, and the other 50, maybe the other 30% or 40% is trail riders, and then you have, you know, some Western guys. But you know, I don't consider myself a Western guy. You know, even though I'm sitting here in a cowboy hat, I'm a horseman. You know,
Right.
someone
Right.
said to me one time, Sonny, you know, do you train Western or English? And I said, well, I've never trained a saddle in my life. You know, I train horses.
Right, right.
You know,
That's a good line.
So yeah. So I mean, you know, I don't care what saddle you ride in. I do problem horses and colt starting and stuff like that, and teaching clinics. But you know, we are at a slight disadvantage, of course, because we don't have things going on all the time. But the reason I'm glad you're here is to show people, hey, we do things here. You know, we have produced some, you know, really good cowboys out of here.
Yeah, we were here, we came in yesterday, actually, day before we're filming this. You had a vet here doing ultrasound on the horse.
Yeah.
And all of the things you'd find in any other barn. And as you kind of watch through this video, you'll see shots of the barn, the paddocks, the arenas. And remember, it's all on Long Island. It's what, you know, do not look down your nose and make you have to say, I'm sorry, I'm from New York. Don't be. It is, you know, because there's a lot of great horses and horsemanship.
Yeah.
And you know, you tapped on training English, Western, whatever. If you take a reining horse and a dressage horse and you put them in the arena, 90% of the training is the same for both.
Correct.
The saddle's different, but 90% of the training is the same. The only difference really in some of that, well, some of the finer dressage moves are a little more advanced, and then the way you cue the horse is a little different. But the training, if a horse is a good reining horse, chances are it could be a good dressage horse.
Listen, fly and lead change is a fly and lead change.
That's
A piaffe is a piaffe, you know, whether
Right.
you're in Western saddle or English saddle. So I totally agree with you there, you know, and I'm happy that you're here to show that. And, you know, I'd be more than happy to show you around. And, you know,
We're going to do that. We're going to take a look around. Sonny, thank you.
hey, Wayne, good seeing you, and thanks for having us.
And you're welcome. And to all of you, just keep watching. We're going to show you more around here, around a working horse farm. I didn't use the term ranch, but working horse farm with all the bells and whistles, including 4,000 acres of trail right behind us.
Yes, sir.
Right here in central Long Island. Stay with us here on Speaking of Horses. Thanks, Sonny.
You bet. Thank you.